Every single time you open an app on your phone, upload a family photo, or settle in to stream a movie, you're relying on a piece of technology we casually call the cloud. I mean, it sounds incredibly light, doesn't it? Kind of like a fluffy white cumulus just floating up there, holding your selfies. But the truth is, this cloud is actually a colossal, roaring, heavily fortified physical machine. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to rip away that illusion of a weightless wireless internet and take a hard look at the staggering heavy industry that actually makes our digital lives possible.
Okay, let's dive into this. Today we're going to dissect a hyperscale data center exactly as if it were a massive, breathing biological organism. We'll start by busting the myth of the cloud, then move right through the anatomy of the facility, from its brain and lungs to its beating heart, its nervous system, its armor, and finally wrap up with the heavy digital reality.
So, kicking things off with Section 1, the myth of the cloud. Let's tackle the very name we use for our digital storage.
You know, the name the cloud implies something totally ethereal. It makes us think our digital lives just float up in the sky as vapor. But the reality is so much heavier. The cloud actually requires millions of square feet of physical, concrete, steel, and silicon. To really understand the internet today, we have to pull back the curtain on these sprawling hyperscale data centers because they are undeniably the heavy, physical engines of our modern world.
Moving right along to Section 2, the brain, otherwise known as the compute core. Imagine stepping right out onto the main floor of one of these massive centers. The very first thing that hits you is just the immense scale of it all. We're talking about tens of thousands of servers stacked in these towering metal racks that stretch literally as far as your eye can see. Think about the simple, quiet computer sitting on your desk. Now compare that to these incredibly dense, modular racks holding thousands of CPUs, specialized high-powered GPUs built specifically for AI processing, and petabytes of solid-state storage. Every single time you ask a digital assistant a question or render a video, that request travels miles in milliseconds to hit one of these densely packed, blinking monoliths. And the second thing that hits you on that server floor? The noise. It is an absolute deafening roar. But here's the wild part. That roar isn't the sound of data crunching. No way. That noise is generated by over 1 million tiny fans running constantly, desperately trying to stop the whole system from a total meltdown.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 3. Let's talk about the lungs of this organism. Thermal management. Because all that incredible computational power we just talked about generates an absolutely unfathomable amount of heat. If left unchecked, a data center would literally cook itself in just minutes. So thermal management is one of the biggest engineering challenges in the world right now. And this brilliantly illustrates the solution, a fascinating system called hot aisle/cold aisle containment. Here is exactly how the cloud breathes. Cold air is pumped directly up through the floor into a designated cold aisle. The servers, which face each other, aggressively suck that cold air in to cool their circuits down, then they blast that superheated exhaust air out their backs into a completely sealed hot aisle. Finally, massive industrial air conditioners, known as SRAC units, capture that hot air and cycle it out to giant rooftop chillers before pushing the cooled air right back onto the floor. It's just a continuous, massive respiration system.
But actually, there's a wild update to that whole process. For the newest, most advanced AI data centers, traditional air cooling isn't even cutting it anymore. The processing demands for AI are just so intense and the heat so extreme that engineers are now forced to pump specially formulated liquid coolant directly across the microchips just to keep them from frying. The cloud is getting hotter, folks.
Next up is Section 4, the heart, or uninterruptible power. Now, there's an absolute golden rule when it comes to the cloud. It can never, ever go down. But think about it. What happens if a massive storm rolls in and knocks out an entire city's power grid? Well, data centers are built with what you can really only describe as paranoid levels of redundancy. Let's trace this blackout sequence. At 0 seconds, the local power grid fails. Within literally milliseconds, so fast the servers don't even register a drop in voltage, an uninterruptible power supply kicks in. We're talking a warehouse-sized room filled with thousands of heavy-duty batteries. But those batteries are just a bridge. They only need to buy a few crucial seconds, because just seconds later, the final line of defense activates. Massive, locomotive-sized diesel generators sitting right outside the building roar to life. For days on end, these generators can power the entire facility. And to put that scale into perspective for you, during that time, this single data center will draw the exact same amount of electricity as an entire small town.
All right, Section 5, nervous system and armor.
Because honestly, all of this incredible computing power is completely useless if your data can't securely reach you.
To connect to the outside world, a hyperscale data center sits directly on top of the world's thickest fiber optic arteries. Thousands of strands of glass pull data in and out at speeds of terabits per second. That is fast enough to download the entire Netflix library in the blink of an eye. These glass strands act as the nervous system connecting the physical building to those massive deep-sea cables that cross our oceans and literally link the globe together.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer level of physical armor. These facilities house incredibly valuable information, everything from your personal banking records to highly classified government intelligence, so they're protected like literal military bases. I mean, they are often tucked away in hidden locations with absolutely no signs on the building. The perimeters are secured by crash-proof barriers, and if you actually try to get onto the server floor, good luck. You're going through biometric scanners, passing armed guards, and stepping through what they call man-traps, which are basically airlock-style doors perfectly designed to prevent anyone from tailgating behind authorized staff.
Bringing us to our final section, Section 6, the heavy digital reality. Because when you step back and look at all these macro and micro elements together, it completely redefines how we understand our digital lives.
There's a quote from our source material that perfectly summarizes everything we've unpacked today. It says, "The cloud requires constant feeding, proving that the digital future is deeply anchored in the physical world." It's so true. Our seemingly wireless internet is 100% dependent on heavy industry. It demands gigawatts of electricity, massive amounts of water for cooling, and intense physical protection. It is an absolute triumph of modern engineering, but it is definitely anything but weightless.
So the next time you tap your screen to ask a digital assistant a question or effortlessly stream a movie, ask yourself this: what is the true physical cost of your next weightless digital action? Keep that colossal, roaring machinery in mind. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world behind the screen.